Welcome back to the Make It Your Business podcast. Welcome back. We hope you've all been doing well. We hope your businesses are thriving, and we hope in some small way we've been able to help with that by sharing our journeys. My name is Duncan Casey. I'm director of Copper Sprocket Limited. We're a video production and content marketing company, and this is James Murray of James Murray Finance, here for all your finance needs. So yes, we are today going to cover the topic of niche versus generalist and talking about the pros and cons of both approaches. So whatever sector you're in, quite often we're encouraged, aren't we, to be, people say, I'm sure there's lots of sayings around it that don't spring to mind right now, but about niching. And
I kept hearing niches in stitches.
Right.
And I was like, well, hang on, what's a niche?
That's a convenient miss.
I was like, I kept hearing the word niche so much, I had to look it up and check whether I'd actually got it wrong. But it just appears that all of these sort of British podcasters and YouTubers are just pandering to our American audience, I guess.
Right.
So anyway, we're going to be using niche.
I think. Yeah.
That's the way we'll refer to it. But yeah, I think comes up in conversation quite a lot for me. And I think obviously on a marketing perspective, people talk about finding your niche, and it makes sense because it makes it a lot easier to market to your audience. But I think it's sometimes, for me, myself, I have a very broad spectrum offering. I am what we call a generalist finance broker. So it's really hard to identify a niche because I've got a lot of experience in a lot of other subjects and a lot of product offering, and I don't really want to leave anything on the table. But when you go to either networking or you are doing a piece of marketing, it's really hard to, in a set period of time, explain to one person what your entire offering is. Whereas if you've got this one thing, I'm a dentist and I do wisdom teeth.
Right.
It's really specific. Whereas if I'm a healthcare professional, it's really generalist. So I think we could probably dig into a few of the pros and cons of these different approaches, and maybe give our listeners, viewers, maybe some ideas on how they might be able to either find that niche within their business or how they might be able to market their product offering better.
I think invariably you start out as a generalist and you niche down, as they say. I think that's, we're in that process now. I know it's been for us, because we do have a broad offering, but it's been hard sometimes to get new business to sort of buy into the whole thing, because ideally we'd want to handle people's video and then from that build out their content calendar, and people, I think, understand how the two are linked, but I think it's always been hard to, I suppose, show where you're a specialist. And because of my background in film, I suppose it's always been, the jumping off point is to talk about film. And so that's what people expect you to sort of mainly focus on. And in a way, that is what we're doing.
I guess in the acting world, sort of bypass into that. I guess actors have found that they've been typecast before because they've done certain roles, and then it's probably easier for them. I listened to Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights, and I listened to it. Somebody recommended that I listen to it because it's him talking, and he's got quite a cool voice, and I think it probably is the best way to consume that book. But he was talking about how in his early part of his career he got typeset as a sort of for chick flick kind of comedy type roles, but he wanted to do deeper stuff, and it took several years, and he had to just keep refusing this particular work, and he wanted to go into this other area, but he'd been typecast in that particular role. And I guess businesses do the same things, and if you do want to pivot, you might have to go through a bit of pain as well to try and change what that is that you're doing. But I can't think. Can you think of any actors that are generalist actors, or do they all?
I suppose you could look at someone like Gary Oldman. The thing is, you tend to get leading men or leading actors, I should say. It's not just men, but it's that typical sort of like leading movie star, and then you've got character actors who generally fill in supporting roles or that kind of thing.
I guess with the main sort of the guys or women that sell the movies, I think like Hugh Grant. But then the only thing that's changed is as he's got older, then he's sort of changed, maybe because of his appearance has changed as well, or has he actively sought those different roles?
I don't know. I mean, I couldn't say in his case. I think so. Someone like Gary Oldman's probably an outlier because he can play. You know, he will generally play. Well, at the moment, he seems to be playing flatulent, cantankerous old men, but which is fine. But you know, he has led movies, but also been supporting in movies, and I think he's managed to kind of generally be kind of. I mean, people use the term chameleon-like. I mean, you always know it's him, apart from Hannibal, I would say. But then he's buried under so much makeup. But I think
I forgot he was in that.
Yeah, but I think. Yeah, there probably are examples, and there'll be examples. I mean, these are all people that don't forget who kind of came up in the 80s, 90s at a time when that, you know, I don't think it's possible.
These niches have sort of worked for them, I guess. And then then you've got. I'm just trying to think who's the chap that did. He played the Welsh actor, and he's really good at doing lots of different types of things. Michael Sheen. So he's very good at.
But his niche is playing like real people.
Yes, so that is his niche. So it's they're really different roles, but the niche is the fact that he plays very different roles and looks like those roles really well.
But he's already like there have been people. I mean, I worked with a makeup artist a little while ago who said she'd just come off a film with James McAvoy, and she was talking to him, and he said it's the first time he's worked in 2 years, and it wasn't through lack of trying. He just said there's nothing out there. And I think where you're going to start to see niches appearing in, you know, where I mean there aren't that many opportunities for new talent anymore, but where you are going to see those niches appear is going to be in things like, and it's like I hate this term, but vertical dramas are the latest thing where they're shot for
that we
social.
Talked about, like, okay.
And it's I call it the devil's ratio. I hate it. I'm actually at the moment making a bunch of videos for a client for social, and it's so deeply irritating. Someone who, you know, you shoot cinematically, but you're restricting it to this, and it's like you can't. Top and bottom is like.
I'm guessing that's also the time that those pieces of work that they're much shorter as well. I'm assuming they're not.
Well, in that case, yes, but I mean, in terms of they are now doing vertical dramas, so they'll do a whole series like that, which is just awful. Yeah, I mean,
what they'll go out on
phones, I guess. I have no interest in watching those whatsoever, but I'm assuming they go out on. Don't you know? And if anyone's watching, and I've done one in the future, don't blame me. All right,
he took the money.
I took the money. No, I mean, you know, maybe I'd be wrong. I don't know, but to my mind, that's just not how you make film or television.
But I guess in a way, bringing it back around, that niching, I guess it works in all types of industry. And that's what people mean when they sort of say find your niche. They're saying that, and a niche can be all sorts of things, can't it? It can be an industry, a problem, a demographic. It can be a platform. Even that it doesn't necessarily mean small. It means specific.
I think as well, like it's sometimes it's you know, we ought to differentiate niche from USP, because I think like in my case, like a niche I sort of tried to exploit was working in. When I was as an actor, I still am an actor, but working as an actor, one of the niches I kind of fell into and then tried to kind of highlight was working in unusual formats. So, for example, Erica was the choose your own adventure, you know, branching narrative format. One More Shot is a continuous take format, you know, so working in non-traditional shooting styles, and you know, because you know, very few people, especially the branching narrative thing, very few people were doing that relatively. So I hoped that it might lead to. I mean, I did do another project that was in a similar style, and I would like to do more, because it is something that, you know, I think you figure we had to basically invent a way of working on that. That I hoped would yield more. I mean, who knows? It may still do, but I think you know, that is another niche. You know, is thinking about working in certain ways, and certainly with film, you know, whether it's corporate film or, you know, cinema or any of that sort of stuff. You know, there's niches around types of filming, like, you know, you have action units and that kind of thing. There's people, you know, like if you work on Mission Impossible, for example, you've got to invent camera rigs and stuff that can attach to Tom Cruise's right ankle or whatever when he jumps out of a plane. You know, there's all sorts of stuff they have to come up with that, you know, can capture certain things. So Yeah.
I think those things, in a way, they're what makes something stand out, though, isn't it? And I think in this day and age, it's all about that wow factor. That's something that's going to stand out from the amount and of standard stuff that's just being pumped through.
In terms of, content, a horrible word that most people in film hate. But I mean, in terms of that, although I would say you have to be careful, because you can quite easily become great at something that becomes obsolete very quickly. And especially with AI and all that stuff, I think, there is a very real danger. And I think I think that there's an awful lot of stagnation going on at the moment, whether that's investment or whatever it is, with people just not knowing what to tie their flag, which mast to tie their flag to, in terms of, are you a this or are you a that? And I think what's tending to happen is you're seeing more people, there are still opportunities out there. I think what it is that you need to become better at doing more with less. I think, this is what we try and do is, essentially provide a film crew for tuppence on the dollar, whereas before you'd have gaffers and, production assistants and runners and all this kind of thing. It's like beg, borrow, steal, three people's job in one person.
I was just speaking to an accountant, and they said that they don't need as many people to do a lot of the jobs that they do now. And although they don't feel that they'll be completely taken over by the machines, a lot of the other roles that were needed, maybe a 10-person team can now be a 5 or 4. And that's probably going to change again. There's still more technology coming out that's going to change that. So
would you say, so going back to this thing talking about, I'm sorry, I know we need to get on to our...
No, it's fine.
James very kindly always prints out a structured thing, which is good, because it stops me from rambling on.
Well, yeah.
But in terms of that, exploring that idea of niche versus USP, unique selling point. So what... I mean, in my view, a kind of looking at niche versus is where you're is defining, I suppose, the parameters in which you are selling into, whereas a USP is a singular thing that makes you attractive to that. You know what I mean? And so in that regard, there's a sort of difference. Do you think what would you say is the difference?
Yeah, I think when it comes to a USP, I put that more down to sort of, I mean, for me, in my perspective, it comes down to stuff like customer service and the way in which, but the problem with that is it sounds really vague. So
like Rory Sutherland said recently, like no one has a USP of doing shit.
Yes.
Customer service. So, yeah.
But the thing is, I think that starts from a good place, because it is real. Like,
absolutely,
there is very poor customer service out there. And I think if you deliver on it, and I think then the way in which you get that messaging across is via real life stories, referrals, and testimonials. So I think as far as like when it comes to USP, I think it's the things that I do within the job that make me unique. And with my business, a lot I'm pretty hands on, so it's I'm unique as a human, and so nobody is going to be able to produce or anything exactly the way I do it, and they're not going to have had the experiences that I've had that make up my offering. So that makes me very unique. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be the best. Well, you normally would tie that unique factor with being good. So, and obviously I'm only going to sort of play on the factors that are going to be advantageous to my business. So yeah, the USP side of things really are probably come down to like the customer service side, and then the suite of products come under that. I've got lots of, well, they're not niches because I've got lots of different products within what I offer. So the problem I've got, I think it's more about having that underlying suite of products, but then having a more targeted sort of sniper approach with your marketing. So, and that's where you then pick out those niche products rather than a niche being like the service or anything, because I think it's just too vague.
Yeah, I mean, because we look at, I've honestly struggled with defining us as content marketing. Doesn't suggest we produce the content necessarily, and then that lumps us in with everyone else.
So broad.
Yeah. Whereas video, again, a lot of video companies out there, but I've yet to find one that's people from the film industry, people who actually make movies and all that.
But
so
the thing with your industry, what you could do, you could take your latest piece of work, high end shoot in Scotland, doing. You would put that in with a very high class piece of work. You could now just target that specific market and go for, and that could be your niche. Mm-hmm. But I guess the counter argument to that is, while you're looking for that work, are you potentially missing out on other opportunities? And this is the thing I'm always combating with myself, because I don't want to leave anything out. I've got so many different offerings that are really good quality products for different people, and I sort of adapt to the room that I'm in and the audience that I'm seeing. So that's kind of fine, I guess, if you are networking, and then you just need to make sure that you're trying to be in the right rooms.
But a niche can be sector agnostic, right? So it could be that your niche in our case is like, okay, hospitality or luxury, high-end film, but that can apply to a number of different sectors. You could sell into the hotel chains, or you could sell into jewelry company. There's a
endless.
lot.
So and I think I limit. There's still a big pond there for you to go in, and I think just psychologically, I don't know if other people get this, where you just want. Sometimes you want to be everything to everyone.
Yeah,
and I get it that's wrong, but it's really hard to sometimes close that door on certain opportunities, because you think you're as I say, you're leaving something on the table, but that's business. You can't be everything to everyone. That is just not possible, and you end up either being a busy fool, or you miss the actual opportunities that are the high ticket value items, or the things that you really, really want to go for.
Yeah, well, wasn't it? Is it Steve Jobs or Elon Musk? I'm not sure which one it was, but I think it was Steve Jobs said that his job was working out what to say no to. Like, that's it. That was, as far as he was concerned, it was like, the whole art of what I do is saying no to as much stuff as I can. So and it's easy to say when you're the head of Apple, and I don't, this is supposed to be the podcast about entrepreneurs on their journey, and
that's it, because when at the moment right now, if you've got an extra 30% capacity and somebody comes along to you and offers you some work for something that isn't really your thing, but you can deliver on it and you'll deliver well, you're probably going to take that work realistically. So it's quite brave to say no to that and have this very stoic approach to just going, no, I know what I want, I'm going for this, and I'm going to say no to every other piece of work. As you say, you're absolutely right. When you're actually in the trenches doing building a business, having that foresight or that commitment to be able to do that. And I think certain industries are harder to do it in. I think finance is particularly difficult. I think in any sort of media or content or marketing area, it's really difficult. But if you were setting up a business today and you were saying to somebody, how could you deliver that? How could you market it? How can you reach new customers? You'd be saying, right, what is it that you do best? What have you got that is different to everybody else, or at least is slightly unique? And you would just go, right, just push that. Because it would be much easier as well to reach people online. Your SEO is going to be far easier. The keyword search index is going to be better. All those sort of things. And then, I mean, even if you were also geographical, because geography can be a niche as well. You could work within a particular area. So I think more of those things that you can home in on and find that audience while still being broad enough to reach enough people. That's the key. And I just think certain industries are easier than others.
Yeah. And I don't know, but I think most people start businesses with one or two clients. They tend to either jump ship from a corporate day job, or they maybe start out with the intention of being a business owner, but usually someone's got some sort of in from somewhere that's giving them the bulk of their income, and so that's sort of, it's hard then to niche.
And sometimes you might also fall into it. So you might, let's say, have like a web agency where you're designing websites, and then you might end up building a website for a hospitality company. And then you think, well, that worked really well. The margins are good. The clients are really easy to work with. I now have a portfolio of work that I can show other hospitality companies. And then you sort of fall into that, and then it becomes quite an easy decision because it all happens quite organically. You might also get referrals from that space. So that side of things, that's where you can sort of go in. There's other sort of generalist approach where you've got somebody like Octopus Energy, very much a generalist product. They offer energy services to people, but underlying that, they're, like you say, is it a USP offering or is it a niche offering? Is that it's sort of lower cost energy, green energy, I think. And that's their target market, but that makes it much easier for them to advertise and reach out to new customers.
And good customer service. I mean, that's always been their thing as well. It's like basically, presumably by having smaller margins and
they showcase they have some really weird phone calls. I've heard it on the radio.
Really?
They'll play back. A bit like with the lottery winners, where they'll pay back somebody winning £1 million, and then they'll sort of go, "Oh my god, I can't believe it!" And then the Octopus Energy ones are awful.
That's really good, thanks.
I'm really happy with the service you provided.
No one talks like that. There's a what is it? It's usually idents more than adverts though, but adverts can be tricky as well. But it's like someone sat around talking about their car insurance or whatever, and it's like, who does that?
Well, this is
I'm
it.
So glad
you're not
saved
really
38% on average with Admiral, and it's just like he said to his wife, who's at the table.
It's hard enough for me to get like a Google review from a really happy client that I've saved thousands of pounds of money for them. It's sort of somebody getting their energy ringing up. They must be real though. They advertise them as these are real life phone calls.
I mean, it could be. I don't know.
The world's a big place. There's lots of different people in it. So
you get that thing of what's it bias? Like, police have this problem as well when they interview people, witnesses, because they want to tell them something they want to hear. So typically, it's like doorstepping, like when or polling people in for elections. If you ring someone up and say, are you pro climate or green agendas? Well, you're more likely to just tell them what you think they want to hear than you are then when you go and vote, or or however, or it's so. You have to take that sort of thing. If Octopus Energy ring you up and go, because these are these surveys, aren't they? They try and get you to take every time. Anyway, but I think you can have a niche with a broad portfolio of products. I suppose. Definitely. It's there's all sorts of things to try, and I think I've said this to other filmmakers as well. It's like sometimes the thing to do is just start servicing whoever's around you and whatever you can get your hands on. And you probably do have to be a generalist when you start, but it's like keeping your eye on, okay, where am I finding alignment? Like you say, it's not just as well what you're good at, it's also where are you finding the people who are most reciprocal to what you do. Because I've worked with clients, as I'm sure we all have. It's the Pareto principle. It's probably a lot of them who drive you nuts, complain about everything, and then probably account for 20% of whatever income you're making, and soak up 80% of your time and energy and stress levels. And especially in the case of like film, they'll be like, "Oh, can you take that out? Can you change that?" The amount of it's so funny. Like I always swap war stories with my cinematographer Richard, but because he does videography and stuff, and and it's like you'll edit something to a track that the client wanted. So of course it's full of cuts on beats, and it's designed around that track. And they go like, he's had a client go, "Yeah, can you change the music?" And he's like, "Right, so okay, to what?" And then they send him something else because it doesn't line up at all. He changes it. Then they come back and go, "Actually, you can put the old one back in," and all this sort of stuff. And it's just like just tinkering. So you get that, and then you get other clients like the client we've just worked with, who is just a joy to work with and a collaborator and loves what we did, and there's no issues at all.
More of that, please.
So and that might be where you suddenly go, okay, maybe that's my niche, like selling into that market.
I think so.
For us, I would love to do more of those sort of videos, and I think we lend ourselves well to that kind of thing, and doing it relatively inexpensively.
I think it's just more the taboo of niche. I mean, as say people say, don't be a Swiss Army knife, be a specialist tool, but at the end of the day, Swiss Army knives are brilliant. I mean, they've probably sold hundreds of millions of them over the years, and they've got a purpose, they're fun, they're successful,
it's also an example of a brand becoming the verb, right? So, well, not a verb, but, like Hoover is to Hoover has become a verb, but it's a brand name. And it's the same thing with that. It's it's like Swiss Army knife of.
Is there a more generalist product?
Like Ronsil. People use Ronsil as an example of honesty and doing what you say you're going to do, right? And it's kind of like, well, you've just used that as an example to decry the very thing that it's, anyway. But yeah.
They sell. They've probably sold hundreds of millions.
Tell me another multi-tool.
Yeah. But that is a very successful. Yeah, I mean they've got a very good reputation as well. Actually,
well, but they're pliers with some stuff. They're not. I guess they are a multi-tool, but they're not.
But
anyway,
I mean it's a good advocate for Switzerland, I guess. But anyway, the point being that is very much a generalist thing, and it's been really successful. And you're not going to buy a Swiss Army knife to cut your steak, but it doesn't mean that can't be successful. I think it's just about actually businesses don't need to necessarily completely niche down. Like as I said, I see a lot of people telling people to completely just find their niche. It's just about maybe they need a bit more direction in their marketing approach.
Yeah, and it's tough at the start. It is tough, and not just at the start, but like as you go through finding your niche, and having to constantly change how you approach the market, which market you approach, and and sometimes that's just going to be. I mean, a lot of time, really, if we're honest. And I think if you look at the people who give advice and these top level podcasts, not the grotty ones in people's kitchens, that they talk about niches as something you have to identify, and you have to, as if they did that from the jump. And it's like what probably happens is you fall into it by servicing, by following kind of what you're instinctively best at, but like you still need to find the parts of the industry that connect.
Well, one of the things, and this works on other projects as well, is finding the thing that you don't want to do, and by process of elimination, you gradually get to that point. So, for example, when I started my business, I had on my homepage, I had 4 key offerings. So, I had asset finance for businesses, car finance, general business finance, which kind of covers loans. So, as you can see, a lot of products here, and leisure finance. So I had the 4 squares that you could kind of click into those, and then that would then go through the products. And then what I did after about a year is I then removed the leisure finance product, partly because I did very little of it anyway. I still can offer that, but I'm not out there looking for it. So I just removed it completely, and then that made the other 3 then are more prominent. And I just think that just made it a little bit more simple for people that are new clients to come to me. And then great, if I get a new customer who's financing a tractor, and then I find out that he also buys boats, then great, I can have a conversation about that. But it would be from that side rather than bringing in new clients and spending a lot of time on an area that I'm not actually really got as much experience in. But as I said at the very start, I wanted to kind of go, I do all of this. This is all, I can do this, I can do this, I can do that. And I think it's a bit of a fool's errand going completely down that road.
Yeah, I the same. I think I've wanted to. We can offer SEO, we can offer copywriting, we can offer all the things, and though we still do that, I think the way in, if you like you found with business finance and that kind of, or asset finance, it's like, well, actually maybe the way in is video. And that's the way, as well. Don't forget that to be, seen as a jack of all to someone is not necessarily an enticing prospect. If they're going to go out there and look like, again, this most recent video we've done, it's like, well, actually, I had started off with this whole thing about, and then we'll do all your socials and stuff like this. And actually, they just wanted, they want to test the water first. And maybe it's like, okay, you come in as the video expert. And that's something in our case, in our products, that is our USP. That's what we absolutely are best at, have the most, collective experience in, and uniquely have made unique movies and TV and that kind of stuff. So, and then, you make a film for someone, you do some cut downs for them, and then they probably come to you after that and go, how can we put this, what's the best strategy to put this out? And then you've got something else to sell. But I think, it's something I don't want to get rid of, but I do think that as we go forward, it's probably going to be much more video. And
you can also delight. You can also dilute your core offering by saying that you offer all these other things, because I think psychologically, if you say you do this, 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 and this, they'll say, well, and you're marketing that you're doing the video, they're going to think, oh, he's not going to be that good at video if he's doing all this other stuff in the background. Whereas if you say, we are the best at video production that you're going to find, it's what we do, we don't do anything else, irrelevant for any other information, you're going to think that second option is going to be a superior product. Yeah.
Well, and there's a lot of, the way markets are going now as well is, everyone's got access to everyone in the world. So it means that, there's a lot more fragmentation, but there's also a lot more opportunity to sort of corner niche markets. It just means you have to be smaller and more agile, I suppose.
What I'm thinking is, if you, using the video example, I wonder if it just needs to be trading names. You don't have to set up another limited company, but what you could do in theory is you could just have your core video company that has a particular trading name, and then all of the other services, they run under another company as such. So then when you say we do all of this, that website, everything else is dedicated to video, but then you're still fishing around for those other opportunities, because there's obviously a synergy with that opportunity. You'd be crazy not to look at it, but it's kind of in a completely different place. So as far as speaking to that client, you say, oh, I've got another company that can manage all of that for you. It sort of separates it. Psychologically, there's a whole nother team that does that, a whole nother specialism. It's not all under that one roof. That might be an idea in which people could market multiple services just under completely different trading names.
That's a very good point. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and I'm, these are things that we're sort of starting to realise, I think, as we've kind of gone into our second and third years, with our companies, is, like you're, the elevator pitch is real, and it's not even an elevator. It's a lift, but it's also, it's meeting someone at a networking event or over a coffee or whatever, and probably having, yes, you might chat to them for 10 minutes, but you've probably got 5 seconds to really tell them what you do, and vice versa, so it's, you don't want to be standing there reeling off the same old patter that you do for everything. You want to stand there and go, we do this. And that's what we do. We just do it really well,
Because even if you are speaking to, I suppose the counter argument to it would be, well, if they don't understand what you do, they're not your customer anyway. But you need advocates for your business as well. So I think it is really advantageous to have a nice, clear message, really simple to explain what I do to the layman.
I also wouldn't necessarily take that, or like, people can not understand what you do and be the perfect customer because they need your expertise. If they understand what you do, why aren't they doing it? It's because I think people sometimes you can make the people who think they understand video are not my ideal client, because they often will have these ideas that don't work, but they think they do because they watch movies or whatever, and it's like, okay, so you have to sort of deal with that. But it's usually, I mean, we've got so many horror stories from the trenches. We've had it where you've been at trade shows just doing boggo standards, interview clips, or like trying to film people on stands, and I've had so many. It's usually business owners who are like, I know what I'm doing, and then they don't stay on their mark, or they I had one guy who insisted on putting his own lav mic on, and he put it in completely the wrong place, and his tie was rustling against his shirt, and I couldn't use it. Didn't end up in the film because it was like, well, yeah. And it's people like that who sure, because I think the thing as well, in that instance, I was, this is a long time ago, but I'd sort of gone to help my mate out, actually, who'd broken his leg, so I was helping him do camera work and stuff, and this guy just before I could open my mouth, was telling me how he knew everything, blah, blah, blah. And I'm stood there at the time as a sort of veteran of, I guess it would have been 10, 12 years as an actor, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, all right, you tell me then, go on, and so, so those are not the clients I want to work with. I want to work with people who understand the value of it, and therefore understand that they don't know how to do it. And it's so, honestly, it's one of the best feelings in the world to show. It's both nerve-wracking and joyous when it works. It's just, it shows someone the film you've made for them, and for them to just light up and go, this is what wanted and more. You've done this, that, and the other, and yeah.
Well, look, I think we've sort of covered quite a few bits there with regards to niche. I don't know how long we've been talking about it, but I mean, again, I think it would be really good to hear from people and get some real life stories, and probably a subject we can come back on, because I think with this sort of thing, I think real life examples are quite important. I think, and each industry is slightly different, so it'd be really good to hear from people and get your take on it. Really, whether you think a niche or a niche. As our American audience will refer to it, as our cousins.
Well, and as we start bringing guests on as well, that should be something maybe we ask everyone is like, what do you think your niche is?
I think it's definitely something that will keep coming up. So
cool, brilliant. Well, thank you everyone for listening to this episode of Make It Your Business. If it's your first time, please subscribe on whatever platform it is you're listening or watching this on. It really does help. Please leave us comments, please leave us reviews, do all the things, share, like, subscribe, all of that stuff. It really, really helps. And thank you to all of those of you who've come back again, because again, that really helps. So until next time, I've been Duncan Casey of Copper Sprocket.
I've been James Murray of James Murray Finance.
And we'll see you again soon.